I'm curious now, so all of the background covering local government, you decided to run for city council because now you're in the arena to change local government for the better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I have one child out of the house now. He's in college. My second is a junior in high school, so he doesn't need me, doesn't want me around a whole lot. So it seemed like an opportune time to run. I had always thought about it, having sort of lived in the city for over 2 decades and sort of seen what's going on. I felt that it was right for me to jump in.
Welcome to another edition of Meeting with the Manager. I'm City Manager Erik Tungate. On today's show, I will be welcoming in our newest City Council member, Julie Edgar, as well as having a discussion with Officer Robert Cook from our Public Safety Department about ways that we are engaging our school districts and our community. So let's get started. Well, welcome, Councilmember Edgar. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Well, I want to get right into it and start with asking you about your background.
Well, I was born and bred in Michigan. I've spent a lot of time in northern Michigan with my family. I've traveled a lot throughout the state. I love it here. Upon graduating college, I actually lived in Japan for about a year, teaching English, mainly because I didn't know what else to do with my life. And it was a wonderful experience. When I came home, I started to freelance for some local newspapers, and I was lucky to land a job at the Daily Tribune in Royal Oak. That's where I really got my start. My early beats included police, courts, and local government. So I would cover city council meetings, planning commission meetings, got sort of interested in land use issues. I got interested in sort of how cities were using tax increment financing to build their downtowns. This was really at the very beginning of DDAs. So I sort of developed an interest in it, both professional and personal. And as my career progressed and I moved from newspaper to newspaper, I really continued covering those issues, along with other issues, but I always liked municipal governance. I felt that it was where things really could happen, that cities could really move forward on the basis of good planning decisions. Sometimes it's just a matter of a millage. So I felt that I'd been interested in government anyway, but local government particularly interested me because it felt pure, I guess, not so political, even though, of course, there's politics. Mm-hmm. So that's really my professional career path. Now I work as a communications specialist for the Area Agency on Aging 1B.
Okay, so it's a perfect segue. And by the way, before we segue, I have to say, I'm among the other things in your background, I'm fascinated with your English literature education, because that was one of my favorite parts of my education as well, by the way. But I'm curious now, so all of the background covering local government, you decided to run for city council because now you're in the arena to change local government for the better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I have one child out of the house now. He's in college. My second is a junior in high school, so he doesn't need me, doesn't want me around a whole lot. So it seemed like an opportune time to run. I had always thought about it, and having sort of lived in the city for over 2 decades and sort of seen what's going on, I felt that it was right for me to jump in.
So you've had, a few months in office now, so you've had an opportunity to do an assessment of, some of the things that the city is taking on. So what things that we are currently doing do you think are working? And then, of course, the next part of that will be what can we do to improve and take on different initiatives?
Well, the fact that Oak Park is a redevelopment-ready community is really significant and important to me. I think that some of the economic growth initiatives undertaken by the city are really important, and I'm totally supportive. I feel that that economic activity is going to form the basis for some of the other improvements that I'm interested in, parks improvements, roads improvements. It will enable the city to do those things with that additional tax revenue that are meaningful to quality of life. Economic development in and of itself is good for quality of life. I think there's a real appetite for it in Oak Park. People want to shop in the neighborhood. They want to eat in the neighborhood. And so I think that's really, really significant, and I think the city is absolutely on the right track.
So, what are your top three? The top three things that you think about before you go to bed and that you think about when you think of the things that we can do here at the city?
Well, I ran on a platform with three major issues. One, enhancing park/green space, utilizing our parks better, rethinking the way that we use parks and open space. So it's still topmost in my mind. Blight is an issue. I think that it's ongoing, and it's true for every municipality. You need to be battling blight all the time. I feel that we need to maybe accelerate our code enforcement efforts in terms of trash management. I think we have some issues, including litter, that definitely need addressing. Commercial blight, I see that some buildings, some property owners really have let their properties go. Their parking lots look terrible. There's crumbling concrete. There's faded parking lines, et cetera. All of those things need to be addressed. And I think that's certainly another issue that remains topmost in mind. I want to see more streetlights. We have sections of town that are dark, and we really do need to start thinking about how to bring some lighting in, maybe decorative lighting even, but different ways of lighting up those areas. I think it's a security issue. And I know that when I was campaigning, a lot of people did talk about that. And then as a dog walker who walks round the clock, I see it. I see sections where I won't walk because it's not bright enough. So those are the three main issues for me. And I hope that we address them in different ways as my term goes on.
And one of the things I immediately think about is the fact that our city council, of which you're a member, obviously, is currently immersed in this strategic planning rewrite process. And so, a lot of the things that you just mentioned, it is also my hope that we'll be able to discuss throughout that process. But I have to ask you now, so in 20 years, what does Oak Park look like? And then I'm also curious to know what you think Metro Detroit looks like. What are some of the major differences 20 years from now?
Well, my hope is that we have a real regional transit system here. I think that we need a way to get people from Pontiac to the city of Detroit, using Woodward as the main artery. It's completely doable. I see Oak Park as benefiting from that because any time you move people together, you create new synergies, and you create opportunities for people to be together. I see how regional transit could really transform a city like Oak Park. I think that Oak Park is part of why people love it here is that it is a bedroom community. It's still, it's a nice place to raise kids. It's family friendly. It's walkable Many other cities around us are not walkable in the same way. And I see Oak Park as retaining that quality of being family-friendly, but at the same time, I see us as becoming a real player in Southeast Oakland. We, I think, sometimes get neglected. We're kind of lumped in with Detroit. Oh, well, that's Oak Park. Whereas Ferndale, Royal Oak, and Huntington Woods are sort of lumped together as more vital. And I'd like to see that change. I'd like to see our reputation change a little bit. We have something that those communities don't, which is real diversity.
Yeah.
And people who live in Oak Park and work here say that it's something they really value. I know I do. It's unique, and I'd like to see Oak Park build on that and build its reputation as being a diverse, family-friendly city.
Absolutely. Yeah, and diversity and transit and all the things you mentioned came up. We just did a recent survey of about 400 people throughout the city, and that was top of mind for folks throughout the city, those things that you mentioned. As was mentioned, you've been in office for a few months now, but I'm just so curious, what are you most surprised by so far in your time?
I'm really surprised by how well everybody gets along on city council, and I'm surprised at how smoothly things run. I've covered city councils that are like Wild West. I mean, you've got lines of residents wanting to talk. You have a lot of hostility among council members. I've seen a lot of that, and so I've been pleasantly surprised at how everybody gets along so well here.
Very civil.
It's very civil. I hope that more residents get engaged in the life of the city, as I have. When I was campaigning, a lot of people said, oh, I could do that too. And I would say, you should. This is just one person getting involved and engaging on a different level, one that hopefully is going to yield some results. But I'd like to see more community engagement. We don't have a whole lot of people at the meetings, not that they're not watching, but it would be great for more people to step up. And I mean, we see volunteers at events, but we need to see younger people get involved and bring their ideas to Oak Park.
Yeah. So I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your thoughts about what's going on in Lansing in terms of road funding and all the rest.
Well, I'm glad that the governor is determined to go forward with road fixes. I think everybody in Michigan needs this to happen. We must fix roads and other infrastructure too. I'm glad that she's in place. I'm very happy that Dana Nessel is our Attorney General. I think she's going to shut down Line 5. I support that. I think she's moving in the right direction in many different ways. I'd like to see our Secretary of State offices improve a whole lot, and I hope that Jocelyn Benson does that. I think that Ruth Johnson did improve them to a certain extent, but having gone through 2 driver permitting processes recently with my kids, it was really just kind of disastrous. All in all, I'm just glad that we may see some real fundamental changes. Unfortunately, in Lansing, I mean, and I'm being political here, I feel that there are too many lawmakers who are way too consumed with not raising taxes and letting the state fall apart. The state I grew up in was somewhat progressive. The state I grew up in is environmentally conscious. Michiganders love their lakes. We love our forests. I want a legislature to reflect that. And I also feel that We have many people in the state government who, unfortunately, are not serious about gun control, which is a major issue for me. So if I had my druthers, we would turn over the legislature and have a much more progressive body.
One of the things that you read all about and you hear all about is just the compromise that either is or isn't taking place regarding road funding. It seems to me, going and issuing bonds is just sort of saying, this isn't working, I'm just going to go it alone and get this done. There are limitations with that. Some of the local roads, for example, can't be improved with those funds. So compromise is such a key thing in government. And I'm curious, not just in government, but in your personal or professional life, how do you look at compromise?
Well, I really hate it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, if you're working with partners who want to compromise, yeah, I think you have to. I mean, that's what government is all about. Good government is you want to compromise. You want to not lose every bit of your ideals in doing it, but you have to have good partners to do that. And I don't think that, if we're talking about the roads, I mean, I think that the high gas tax that the governor was proposing was really out of whack. I mean, listen, it would have hurt a lot of people who just can't afford that. But there are other ways to go about it, and I feel that she was pushed to the wall on this, and bonding is not the perfect solution, but sometimes you just got to move on it and hope that everybody else will follow. But that said, yes, I mean, I'm working with the city council that absolutely is engaging on a smaller scale, but in the same way, that we are going to have to compromise on certain issues. I'm just new with this, so we haven't done a whole lot, but yeah, I see that coming.
And by the way, if you were to ask me the same question about my time, I would say the same thing almost. It's just amazing to me. This is truly one of the gifts of Oak Park, is just the civility that exists here. We don't always agree, but I think, and I've worked in many other government entities, of course, one of which people would throw chairs and, argue, screaming and yelling at each other in council meetings and things. And we just don't do that here because we disagree, and we do it civilly and respectfully, and it really is a pretty magical situation. People are allowed to share their opinions, and even if they're different. I think that's an awesome thing about this city.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I very much appreciate it, and I really am looking forward to serving with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. That was a great segment. It is now my honor and privilege to be able to introduce Officer Robert Cook.
Sir?
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
As is usually the case, I want to ask you some questions about some of the work that you do in our community and also some of the things that our public safety department is doing in general. But I wanted to start with, as I always ask you, what are some of the prevailing issues that you're seeing out there from a public safety standpoint?
Well, we have internal and external issues. The main internal issue that we've faced over the last couple of years is just a manpower shortage. We've had some retirements, and going back to the layoffs even of 2011, getting back to full strength has been a challenge. I'm happy to report that we have one new officer who just left the training program and is out on his own, and he's doing a great job. And we just hired 5 new officers. So 4 of them right now are in their field training officer training program, and they're doing well. The 5th is in the academy right now, so he'll be up and running this summer. And what people should know is these officers are all in their early, mid-20s. They are definitely the face and the future of this department. Right. And it's a bright future based on these candidates, these new hires. They're doing a good job. And then externally, the issue that public safety and police departments all over the country have faced for the last several years is the perception of police and policing. Now, we've done several initiatives here to engage our community with us in a positive way, not just on a traffic stop or we're at your house because your house got broken into or something like that. These traumatic circumstances. So things like the Citizens Academy, where we have citizens come in once a year, about 30 citizens, and we run them through a mini academy and show them what we do, kind of let them in behind the curtain and see what we do. Those have been invaluable. The Oak Park Police ice cream truck, which we take out in the summertime and we give away free ice cream all summer, driving through the neighborhoods. Uniformed police officers, that's another thing that we've done. We've been doing a couple times a year an event we call Police Contact. We do it at the middle school, the high school, and the Freshman Institute. And my partner and I, we have a steering wheel that's on a rig, and we set up chairs in a classroom like it's a car. And we instruct these young men and women on how to act and how to behave on a traffic stop, what to expect of the police on a police contact situation, whether it's a traffic stop or you're just walking down the street and the police have come up to you, what we expect from them and what they can expect from us. So everyone is clear on how this is supposed to work and how it's supposed to look, to have an understanding of each other and why we do what we do, and that will eliminate some of these negative police contacts that a lot of people have. And we have a brochure that we give them, and we urge them to take it home and share it with their family members, and they do, and we've gotten really good feedback and response on that. A lot of kids aren't getting what we refer to as the talk of how to act on a traffic stop or with police contact. So those initiatives are really helping out.
Absolutely. So I have to ask you, because you really are our spokesperson for back and angled parking on 9 Mile. So I want you to talk about, how's it going, what issues are still out there, and what are we going to be doing to remedy some of those issues?
Well, it's going well, and it's just been a matter of educating people. So we've actually handed out over 400 back and angle parking brochures to cars that are parked incorrectly. My parking enforcement officers every day go by there 4 or 5 times a day. They've got a brochure. If they see a car that's parked in incorrectly, either sideways or nose in, they'll put a brochure on the wiper. I was happy to report the other day when I drove by, there's one spot where I believe there's 10 back and angle spots. There were 10 cars and they were all backed in, so I was proud to see that. So it's just really education. We've had complaints that the signage isn't very good there. There's only one small sign that faces east at the beginning of the lot. It's my understanding that DPW in the spring will be posting larger signs that face both directions at both ends, maybe even with a little graphic showing how to back in, so people do it correctly. But to remind people who are confused about the back and angle parking, the reason for it is it's safer to pull out into 9 Mile traffic once you've already backed in. But also, you're getting more spaces. If that was just parallel parking, you might get 3 or 4 cars parallel parked. With back and angle parking, you get 10 cars in the same space. So it really does help the business owners out quite a bit.
I was going to ask you, I've heard a few complaints from people who complain because they're coming in the opposite lane and they want to swoop around. And what are your feelings about
Well, they need to know that's illegal. So when you're traveling eastbound and you pull nose into the parking spot, you're committing 2 violations. One is you're driving into oncoming traffic. 2, you're parking into a back and angled spot.
So not to mention that you're pulling into oncoming traffic and then you're backing up into oncoming
Well,
traffic.
that's the worst of it. So when you back out, you're now backing out blindly into 9 Mile traffic, but facing the wrong direction, which means you're going to have to back out all the way across 9 Mile. So it really is a hazard when people park incorrectly, which is why we've been putting the brochures to educate people. But as soon as we get those signs up in the spring, which is what I've heard, rest assured the traffic enforcement guys are going to stop the education phase and they're going to start writing tickets. So
it truly is easier to do. And certainly when you're pulling out, because you can see what's coming much clearer than if you did it the other way. So.
It's easier to do, and the only assistance that you need is a little bit of patience from the car behind you and a little bit of understanding from the car behind you as to what you're doing. Now, I've urged people, slow down, make it clear to the car behind you that you're not just turning right at the next street, but that you're parking in this back and angle parking, so that person can lay back a little bit. But again, it's just education once people are used to it. I remember when the roundabouts were first appearing out in Macomb County and out in Washtenaw County and stuff, and people were losing their minds a little bit. But now that they know how to do it, it's just a part of your everyday driving. So.
Okay, so let's shift gears again, back to the schools. You spend quite a bit of time in the school districts. So what are the kids saying? What are you hearing at the schools when you're there?
Well, everybody should know that with the addition of the second community resource officer, which is my position about a year and a half ago, My partner and I have been able to split up the Oak Park schools amongst us, and on a daily basis, we're in the school. We keep track of how often we visit the schools, and those visits are sometimes just a walk around or a meet and greet in the classrooms, or we'll sit in with some students, we'll play ball with some kids in the basketball court, or we'll just go visit the administration, the security. We like them to see us there as just a normal fabric of the school. I remember when I went to high school, man, if you saw a police officer in the school, you wondered what was going on. Yeah. These kids, it's just normal to see us there. As a matter of fact, if there's a few day stretch where we don't make it into a school, the kids are wondering where we are, and they're asking us if everything's okay because we weren't there, which is nice. So last year, my partner and I recorded over 500 school visits in the school year, 500 visits to the schools. In addition, our regular patrol officers are instructed during their shift to visit a school in their district and just go in and walk around and meet and greet. So we have a nice presence there, and I think it makes everyone feel safer, and it makes the kids.
It's an open line of communication. I mean, relationship driven. I mean,
absolutely,
no
absolutely.
So we talked a little bit about vehicle safety in terms of keeping your vehicle safe and free of break-ins. Let's talk about home safety a little bit, though. So what are some of the things that you recommend people should be doing at their own homes?
Well, some of them are very old school, easy. They've been around forever, and it's as simple as turning on a porch light. I know a lot of people who are eco-conscious or didn't want to spend the money running a light bulb all night. Those days are past. You can get, for $6, you can get an LED light bulb to put on your porch light that uses 13 cents of electricity a year and lasts for 18 years. I urge everyone, turn on your porch lights. Criminals don't want to be in the light. They're not going to break in your front door or your back door. They're not even going to walk up your driveway if it's lit up. So that's the simplest thing that people can do. Statistics have shown that houses with lights on, neighborhoods with lights on are safer. A high-tech version of home security that I urge everyone to get, because it helps us out too, is the video doorbells. There's a bunch of different brands. They're very expensive to install. They don't have to be monitored by a separate service. You can have the video put on your computer. But we have solved so many crimes in the last 2 years because we canvass the neighborhood after a crime and we pull up these video doorbells. But also allows you to see who's outside before you answer your door. If you hear something suspicious, one of the crimes that's kind of been a little bit rampant in every community are the porch pirates, the package thieves. Most porch pirates, when they see that very visible video doorbell, they're not going to steal your package because they know they're going to be on video, it's going to get displayed to the media, and they're going to get caught. Smoke and fire detectors. If you can't afford a smoke and fire detector, come see me or Officer Oakes. We have a box of them. We'll be happy to give them to you. I can't stress the importance of a smoke, fire, and carbon monoxide detector enough. Obviously, we're the fire department here as well, and we'd like early warning on any types of fires or any type of smoke situation in your house. And then the last thing is, I urge everybody, even when you're in your house, keep your doors locked. Always keep your doors locked. Again, we very rarely have break-ins of any kind, but we have people that walk in open doors. Keep your doors locked at all time. No one will ever come in your house.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, sir.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
As you know, we are a city government that has made tremendous strides to reach our goal of becoming one of the best inner-ring suburbs in all of metropolitan Detroit. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Meeting with a Manager, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.